Aibon, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Charitha, IICS from back in the day, 2002 batch. We are here for the very first IIT Alumni Tech Talk session, first of many. We will have more details on that later, and you will find more of it on the newsletters and the social media. We are very lucky to have with us today 4 IIT graduates from different batches, starting going in alphabetical order, but also starting with the lady Nivanthi Aluthwala, IICS 2001. Then we have Manindra Dharmadasa, 2011 batch, Nuwan 2011 batch, and Prathieshna Vekneswaran 2016 batch. So we have a very tight schedule when you look at the kinds of excellent topics we need to talk about and the limited amount of time we have to go over those. So thank you to everyone who joined right on time. We have quite a large number of registrations. So we hope the others will be able to join as we go. And this session will be recorded and shared for future viewing as well. So today's first session, we will be talking about emergent technologies and trends shaping industries and job markets locally and globally. We were just talking before this session started also on how job markets are going to be affected and how young and graduates in the near future will have to cope with what kinds of disruptions there may be to come. So with today's panel, we'll cover these changing roles and focus areas in the sectors that they cover, which they will give a very brief introduction of what those are as well. And we'll get some practical insights into the evolving skill demands and how all of us, whenever we graduated, or even if you are yet to graduate, can strategically prepare to thrive in these spaces. As you follow, please do prepare your questions, direct them to a specific member if you can, or if it is for more than one or all of the panel, please let us know in your message, which you can drop into the chat, and we will collect them towards the end and start directing them to panelists after we have some initial discussion. So some very brief introductions, as we need to be mindful of time. The panelists, starting with Nivanthi Aluthwala, who is the Director, Audit and Assurance, IT Data and Analytics at Deloitte, Sri Lanka. Nivanthi will share with us how these emergent technologies and trends relate to the imperative for systems quality and governance. And she will actually be wrapping all of this up once we talk about these to give us the perspective on the most important thing, because we are not just hacking things together here. These are mission critical systems that we are building. Then Mr. Manindra Dharmadasa is the Vice President of Info Services at Fortitude. And he'll talk about ERP implementations, delivery, and how emerging technologies are reshaping this landscape. Then Nuwan, Vice President and Deputy CTO of WSO2, will talk about AI, machine learning, cloud, and analytics. And finally, but only by alphabetical order, we have Mr. Prathieshna Vekneswaran, who is an independent software contractor for Open Archive LLC, who will talk about data privacy, cybersecurity, and compliance. We are being asked to open up our systems and our data to all kinds of parties around the world. How do we stick to the security and the compliance of that as well? So to kick us off, I'm going to ask each panelist to make a very brief self-introduction, where you will cover, number one, your favorite module when you were at IICS or IIT, and two, your title or role, and how you would explain it to your mother, which you get only 3 sentences. So let's stick to the alphabetical order for now. So Nivanthi, let's start with you.
Yes, Charitha. So I don't think I had a favorite subject at IIT, but I think I was good in organizational structures and information systems management, which was taught in first and fourth year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure whether those are called the same now. And once I graduated, I was a software engineer and a database administrator for the first 6 years of my career. And for the last 19 years, I've been an IT system auditor with the world's best audit firms, PwC and Deloitte. So, like you said, if I explain it to my mother, we look at systems, IT environments, and then if there are any gaps, we give solutions on how to correct them. So, that's my role in plain English. I actually thought that this was a QA position because at that time my division was called Systems and Process Assurance. Then I applied to it. But when I was explained the role, I thought this was something new. This was almost 20 years back. So I thought I'd try this out. So I'm still there.
Interesting. Thanks, Nivanthi. So now we'll go to Manindra.
Yes. So I think first question was which module. Um, I took some time to remember the modules that I covered back in the day, but I think system analysis and design was something that I liked, which I believe was from second year. I liked how they taught us to, look at business problems, then design systems. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Um, Second question is what I mean. I currently play the role of vice president on Info ERP consulting at Fortitude Private Limited. Um, Third question was, I think, how do I explain this to my mom or dad? To be honest, after 15 plus years of being in the corporate, I don't think my mom and dad knows what I exactly do to date. They know something related to computing. I do something related to computers. That's all. But I mean, in all seriousness, I run a consulting resource base for a reputed global company, which focuses on ERP and solutioning for business problems related to leading global brands in the spaces of fashion, F&B, and retail.
Okay. Thanks, Manindra. So now, still in alphabetical order, we'll come to Nuwan.
All right, sure. Nice to be here, guys. So on the favorite subject, I guess it was object-oriented programming with C++ for me, and data structures. So yeah, been a bit of a techie. So those have been the subjects that have been, interesting to me. In terms of like what I do, I am a VP and a deputy CTO at WSO2. I spend most of my time doing, product management for one of the products at WSO2 called the API platform. So if I ask, if you ask how to explain it to my mother, well, I would say like if you walk into an ATM and put your card and get out money, well, to make that thing happen, it needs to connect to a lot of systems, all the way from Visa or Mastercard to all the banking systems to your authentications, like security systems and so on. So I work on building software that makes that connectivity possible. Not just in that space, but also in many other systems that behave in such manner. So yeah, that's basically what I do. So when I say product management, it's like if you think of building a house, you have an architect who makes the decisions of how should a house look like, how many doors and windows should it have. It needs to be modern, it needs to be nice, it needs to be functional, and so on. So it's like that. So my primary role is making sure that the products we build, they meet the market needs, they are beautiful, can be used safe and secure and so on. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Nuwan. And so again, only because of alphabetical order, Prathieshna, same questions to you.
All right. So my favorite module is like concurrent and distributed systems. That is where I work actually. So I think what made it favorite is because understanding that these can like learning this made me realize that even on unreliable networks and even conditions, like these systems play a critical role in order to function. So later on down the line during my working in different organization, I realized that some of these softwares are very mission critical and something very serious deals with real life situations. So coming to how I would explain it to my mom, it's going to be a little bit complicated. So I would say, like, I write software for a living. I will keep it like that. Okay. So I work for a non-profit organization called Open Archive. So what they're doing is they're majorly into privacy and security and data protection. And in SL, I have the privilege to working with mental health organization called MHPSS.lk and also an animal welfare organization called Dog Star Foundation. So I equally contribute to them and spend some time with them and give my expertise on a voluntary basis. And IIT is where it all started, and it's really good to be back.
Thank you. Okay, I wish we had more time to get into the experience and the way these careers have been shaped, but we really need to get to the topics and the questions. Please do another reminder, please, any questions you have, please, if it's directed to a panelist, put the name there and send us a question. We'll be asking them as we go through the rounds, especially at the end. So, Nuwan, I'll start the next round with you. When you think about your first job post graduation and how you got to where you are now, was it a linear process, or did you see the opportunities developing, or maybe you had some great mentors, people who pointed you in interesting directions? What, thinking of that, what would you say today to someone who has not dealt with AI much, whatever point they are in their career, about breaking into AI product roles?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I definitely had great mentors. So I was lucky to have great mentors all throughout my career. It was definitely not a linear process. So there was a lot of, hard grinding work. So one of the benefits that we had in our days is that we didn't have a lot of influence on social media. It was, there, but not as this much. So we didn't get lectured on these things like, work-life balance and things like that. So work was life for us and is still life for us. So, we had the privilege of not being lectured on those kind of stuff. So on, advice for, AI and stuff. So if you basically open up your eyes and look at what's going on, so we had this thing called software is eating the world. But if you look at what's happening right now, AI is basically eating software. So the grinding, the laborious kind of work that people are doing, they are basically going away. So for anyone coming into the market, it's very important that you understand this, right? What's going to pay off in the future is the executive kind of work, like the creative thinking, the critical thinking. That's basically the things that humans are actually good at and robots can't do, right? Writing code, which is like a laborious, process, is being taken over by, AI, and so are many other jobs like technical writing and so on, the stuff that robots can do. So it's very important for everyone to understand this, and at the same time the knowing your fundamentals and principles is now even more becoming even more critical now, because you can't think critically if you don't get your fundamentals right. You can't, you'll end up imagining, even though you could be creative, you can't be realistically creative unless you know your foundations well. So something that's really important in today's world is to know your fundamentals well, so you can basically guide the robots and stuff that are doing stuff for you, right? So everyone who's coming into the market will be using AI tools to do stuff for you instead of doing things by hand. So this is something that's very, very important. And so there's this fear of AI taking away our jobs and so on and so forth, which is the reality of the world. Yes, it is taking away some jobs. That is true. But at the same time, if you look at you personally or me personally, instead of AI taking away your job, what's actually going to happen is someone who is better at using AI tools is going to take away your job if you are not competent with using AI tools. So for everyone coming out in the market, right, my advice is to start building something with AI. This doesn't mean forget the principles, right? You have to be more cautious and more in depth about the principles and the foundations, but at the same time, get your hands on, build something useful for yourself, maybe for the community, right? Build some agents. So get these understandings, very well laid out in the early days of your career, and get your hands dirty on this stuff, right? Because that's going to be the future. It's going to play a very critical part. And another thing is, so AI is also expensive, even at least today. So unless you know your foundations, you're going to waste a lot of money doing stuff that you can do very cheaply by using AI tools for stuff that you don't even need it for. Right? I've been joking, like in the 2 years from now, even for a simple regular expression, people are going to need chat GPT or something like that, right? So that's a very expensive way to solve a very simple problem. So this is why, so the people who can do things efficiently are going to have more demand in the market, right? So this is why knowing your principles and also getting your hands dirty on this AI stuff is going to be very important.
Okay,
So,
thanks, Nuwan. So that's a very interesting insight. So get your hands dirty is the message from Nuwan, but also when you know what you're doing, you're saving costs if you're because AI is so resource intensive, and that's a very valuable tip, I think, for everybody. So now let's turn to Manindra. Everything about machine learning, AI analytics, ERP, and enterprise systems are areas where industry analysts and CEOs see this immense potential for unlocking new value. They are looking, but I mean, when you look again at your own career, how it has evolved, and how you see these emergent technologies and trends, what advice do you have for IIT grads just entering the sector and people trying to figure out what it means for their careers?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty lengthy question, but I think I'll take something out of Nuwan's explanation also. I think I'm from a very business, not a very techie guy. I'm from a very business management, leading people, that sort of background. So what Nuwan said is you need to know the basics, even though you hear these emergent technologies and all that, the fancy words and whatnot. You need to know the basics, because from a business perspective, you don't. I mean, no point in having AI if you don't know what to solve, right? You need to understand that there is a problem. How do you identify that problem in a business or in any context? That's very important, right? So, yeah, for sure. Because if you don't know the problem, you can have the most fanciest, technologies, tools, or AI platforms. You won't be able to, add any value in any business. So I think that's where the basics are very important. So in the area that I work in the ERP space, or the digital solution space, I would break it into two areas, at least based on my experience. So yes, AI is reshaping our sort of day-to-day tasks and jobs across all disciplines. But I would kind of break it into two aspects in the ERP space, where first aspect would be how or what solutions can we build for our customers to actually make their lives more productive on a day-to-day basis. That's essentially what we have to do, right? So AI is basically getting things done faster. Whatever it is, it's getting things done faster, right? So I mean, in the ERP space, like stuff like getting automations done, getting predictive analytics to do your demand forecasts, that sort of fancy solutions are definitely doable. So that's the key area that we focus on in the ERP space. But the second aspect of it is, how do we get our products rolled out in faster ways? That also brings ROI to clients, because if we take 2 years to implement an ERP versus if we can get it done in 6 months, that's also a really valuable proposition for customers. So that's why the second avenue in my space is very important, because if you can roll out an ERP or any solution for that matter in half the time using AI platforms, that will give a lot of ROI and benefit to the customer. So for example, during our implementations, using automated testing scripts, I mean, normally it would take a a normal, QA engineer to test it out in say 2 weeks, right? It could reduce that to maybe a couple of hours. Stuff like, using AI platforms to do your documentation. I mean, whatever said and done, documentation is very important still, but how you get that documentation done faster can add a lot of time and efficiencies to your projects. And simple stuff like, for project managers, using Copilot, certain agents that you have on a day-to-day basis, it allows you to take notes, right? Because meeting minutes, follow-up actions, all that is very important to, drive a project in the right direction. So if you can use those tools to, make your life productive and better, that in turn gives a lot of efficiencies onto your projects. So I think in summary, it's a lengthy answer also, but in summary, to the like the students who are coming up through the ranks, first point is you need to understand your basics, as Nuwan said. Even if it's tech, even if it's business, you need to understand the basics of how to understand a problem, how do I solve, what are the best techniques to solve these problems. Then you have to always update yourself, because these days, unlike those days, so when we kind of learned, every single day, even on the ERP platforms, there is something or the other that gets released. So if you don't invest time in updating yourself and learning the new things and practicing, you will be left behind. So the simple advice is always be open to learn, adapt, and move on with the technology, and then you will have great potential in the market.
Thanks, Manindra. So yes, and to add to that, something I moonlight doing a little career guidance kind of stuff at a few different faculties, and I always say the most important thing that you should get from your university education, if not before, is learning how to learn, because that is the skill that you will need for whatever you go into. So thanks for reinforcing that, Manindra. Now we'll bring it to Prathieshna, but before that, we are doing, I don't want to jinx it, but we're doing well on time so far. So if anyone has any questions that you would like us to even put to the panelists in after we do this round, where we can do that, and we can keep bringing the questions in. So let me just give me a second to check the feed in terms of what questions we have. So I think we are okay to keep going right now, but do please bring the questions in. You can direct them to one of the panelists, or I can direct it depending on what the topic is and who I think maybe even more than one people who might be able to add something to that. But while you're doing that, so we talked about some of these technologies. We talked about how they are being applied and what they really mean in major enterprise kind of settings. Now, even today, I saw a meme of a GIF rather of a person, rather the I can't remember the name of the guy, but the rat from the Linguini. What is the Ratatouille? So and the guy just tossing things into a saucepan and saying, me just sharing all my company's data for an emails to ChatGPT because I want a simple answer. So now we come to Prathieshna, who's, I mean, we've seen increased concern by citizens and governments on data privacy and companies too, rights and ownership with laws and regulations like GDPR and some I hadn't even heard of until you mentioned them earlier. So how do data privacy and ownership considerations impact software design and usage policies, especially usage policies now, actually? And what would you advise a recent graduate or a career changer on the opportunities in compliance, audit, secure system design, that kind of thing?
All right. Thank you. So I think I deal with it on a day-to-day basis. The privacy is the domain that I'm working on. So in the beginning, privacy was just the, the cookie kind of pop-up that you get in the website. You say you agree, and that's it. That's once you see that, you feel like, okay, your data is protected and everything like that. That was the era, like, when GDPR was introduced, it was like, there was a pop-up, okay, I accept all the cookies, right? What are we accepting, right? So what are we allowing them to do is that most of them are not, people are not aware of what they are doing, right? That is where then government intervention was actually brought into place, where they had to govern, because even know you must have had experiences with your parents where you have to convince them that this is an AI post. This is not true. WhatsApp posts and everything like that, right? So GDPR was the inflection point globally, and then after that we started looking at it as a Western problem, but until it became our problem, right? You remember in 2020, I think 25, one of the local bank has been, arguably the largest breach of personal data was happening. And in August 2023, there was a ransomware attack on our very own government network. Over 5,000 gov.lk emails were exposed. From 2019, if we look at the stats, it's like 596 penetrations into, like, we have around 4,347 attacks into try to breach and get private personal data, right? This is all in happening in Sri Lanka. This is not global data. This is all happening in Sri Lanka, right? So given that it became our problem, and that is when Personal Data Protection Act was bought in 2022. It's slowly phasing in, but I think local organizations are attempting to trying to like phasing in into their operations, try to protect the data, right? So what it means for software design was your question, right? Now we design data minimization. That means we have to tell the people what we are collecting, how we are collecting, and it's not something that you can bolt on later on in your system once it's once it's done. Okay, I'm going to bolt privacy or add privacy later on, right? That is the usual practice, right? But now it has to happen from the ground up, from the design basis, so the consent, the purpose limitation, and the right to erasure. That means if I want my data to be deleted, it's going to be very tricky, right? You just imagine if privacy wasn't built in your system, your data is going to be, couple of microservices to backup systems, and then the what you call the analytics. It's spread across all over the place, right? Going and having that requirement later on down the line, it's going to be nearly impossible to do so. That's why it's important to bring in privacy from day zero, right? So bringing into the architecture. In my own work, I think I build application for the journalist, working in sensitive areas like Myanmar, Sudan, or Ukraine. So where privacy is not just about, facing some fine. It's about human life. Okay, so it's very mission critical in that case. So privacy is something that is no longer something it can be an afterthought. It has to be one of the key requirement when it comes to any software design down the line, and that open doors to a lot of opportunities. So for the future graduates, I think it's not a Western problem anymore. So we have that problem here, and then we are facing it. Our local organizations are facing it, and there are so many opportunities. And why security is important, right? So privacy and security goes hands in hand. So we were talking about AI generated code and everything like that. So how we develop application has basically changed. Where we must have heard the term vibe coding, right? People can do things on their own that they don't have the in-depth knowledge. But what's going to happen internally if we don't have the awareness? The AI tools can also make mistakes, and then it needs to be treated like something that needs to be reviewed carefully, right? Not baked in directly into some of the major systems. That is going to open up to loopholes. You all must have heard of the term script kiddies, people who in the searching the online and try different things. And you must have heard funny stories about how our systems were, penetrated by using small things like SQL injections and stuff like that. I think Nivanthi will be touching upon it later on. So these exploits have become very common. So earlier, the banking example or the other example that I have given is more sophisticated, but going forward, we don't have to expect it from sophisticated people. I think they have the power of AI. They can do tremendous damage to systems with that. So it brings a lot of threats, and cyber security as a domain is booming in that region because most of them, when they do this coding, they are unaware of the importance of having the deep knowledge. So what should we do? So with this thought, I'm going to wrap up. I think we learning this OWASP 10 is like the top 10 security concerns that are around the globe. Every year they update this with the numbers. We have the threats identified, and then actually we need to build it into our systems from ground up. So having that knowledge or the certification, the ISC2 cybersecurity certification, which is free to do, I think it would be a good thing on your CV. And also understanding the Personal Data Protection Act happening in Sri Lanka, knowing about it, and it will give you a leverage when it comes to candidates who might not have the knowledge on those things. So the demand for people who can do this is real, and the supply locally is still very thin, and the gap is your opportunity. I think I'll end that with that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Prathieshna. So we are getting some, that was a very important, some terms that I hadn't even heard before. Very important sector that the more and more we depend on these kinds of schools to help us, and whatever the vulnerabilities that can come in, and all these things, it just requires us, when we are building serious systems for serious users, how we need to keep that top of mind. Not, as you said, as we used to think, as an afterthought. If you go to many places in Colombo, for example, the parking seems to be an afterthought, or that cannot be your security. So we are getting some good questions, and we are going to collect them. Please, if it has to be directed to a specific person, please mention that. Do share your name if you can, and we will keep collecting them, and we'll put it to everybody. But for now, let's go to Nivanthi before we come to the round of questions. But any more questions also, you can keep coming. So I'm going to Nivanthi to tie everything together, because we came through this sequence. We are very lucky to have this diverse panel from in terms of experience and backgrounds and everything. But Nivanthi here is the person, CEOs and boards get excited and they say, you have to have this, why don't you have AI, why don't you have this? And that kind of puts pressure on CTOs or on vendors to say that they have all that. They push for this technology. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of that happening, but from a systems governance and quality perspective, especially considering these cross-cutting and far-reaching, the depth of these how these technologies can affect these things and these models. When it comes to how data will be used, how systems will be changed, what are some of the core principles you would leave us with for navigating these changes to this landscape, to our systems, to the way we think about our systems and build them? And what advice would you have for young graduates and mid-career professionals to work with and to get into this area of work?
Yeah, yes, Charitha. So of course, I think there are like so many buzzwords these days: cloud, AI, big data analytics, machine learning, okay, whatnot. And then obviously everyone is excited to use these technologies to be ahead of their game. So all the maybe the top management, CEOs, MDs, boards, whatever, say, let's use this, let's use that. But you need to be really careful, right? So what the fundamental thing that the companies need to keep in mind is whatever you do, you need to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of your systems and data. So in short, it's CIA. So you need to ensure that. And then to start with these new projects, first you need to do a detailed risk assessment. You can't just jump into, okay, let's put AI from next month. You can't do that. So you need to assess the risk, decide what you're going to use AI for, or what systems are you going to put on cloud. Are you going to put all your systems on cloud, or you just choose and put, okay, maybe first the less critical ones you put on cloud, then you get the services, right? And when you do that, you have to select your providers correctly. So all in all, whatever you do, even your current systems or these future driven technologies and systems, you need to have them access controlled. The authentications have to be right, the roles and responsibilities. And then whatever changes that you do, get them approved, get them tested. So that is basic. I think even from changes, all changes have to be tested. And then only the authorized people should be able to deploy changes to your live environments. So that access control, that then you have to have the segregation of environments. You can't do everything on live. You even now, I think in your systems, you have the development environment, you have a test environment, and you have to have your production or your live. So nobody should be able to go in and directly implement the change in the live system. It has to be tested. So I guess all of you agree with me. And then your backups, very critical. It has to be regular to be tested. Then your DR capabilities, I think in the recent future, even some of the cloud data centers have been affected in the Middle East. So then I'm sure they had their DR capabilities or the load balancing or whatever built in other regions, other geographical regions also, because normally this kind of geographical threats are less. So we normally think about, okay, the softwares will fail and all, but it is a different ball game altogether right now. So all those have to be thought out. And then your networks have to be controlled, monitored. So you need to keep all those area security. And then especially your vendors, your suppliers, you need to have the up-to-date contracts with them. So sometimes when an issue happens, then the companies find out, oh, we have not renewed the contract with our vendor or your IT vendor or the supplier or whatever the terms that we have agreed with them is not so up to date. So your service levels, everything, you need to get them updated. So all these areas, and then you have to have good mechanisms to ensure incident management. How do I manage my incidents? You need to have a formal, thought out, proper process. Otherwise, if I is when the incident happens, people will run helter skelter. And what do we do about this? How do we sort it out? And that those things need to be there. And whatever, like Manindra mentioned, even documentation on most of these areas are quite important. And then you can, of course, use AI and these other technologies for the documentation, because documentation is cumbersome. But you can't leave it 100% to the tool to do, okay, you do this for me. But the human involvement has to be there, but all these have to be documented. And then your networks, like I said, controlled. So to do all this, you need to have the proper policies and procedures, or you need to have the proper guidance. So then that's where the company IT policies and procedures come in. You have to have the IT steering comms. You have to have the change control boards. I think even now most of the companies do have them. Then you have to have a IT scorecards. So all these things, and you need to sort of bring in all these new technologies also into that, and then especially the IT risk assessments, because most of the companies, I think they have the risk assessment, the normal risk assessments, but during our audits, we find only few companies have a proper IT risk assessment, because no place is 100% risk free. When our life is not 100% risk free, so we need to see how we can mitigate certain risks and how we can accept. So maybe through insurance, or you can have risk transfer. So there are different ways of risk assessment that you can do. So those also have to be thought out, especially when you're embarking on these new technologies. The risk assessment part is really important. So all these things needs to be there. And then we can use all these frameworks. So there are so many ISO frameworks that are there for different areas: business continuity, information security, even ITIL. We have COBIT and NIST, GDPR, like Prathieshna mentioned, for data privacy. And we have our local PDP Act. Plus, our central bank has so many regulatory acts or directions for IT, technology resilience, and other acts, and for different industries. And the TRC has different regulations. So, in addition to the global frameworks, each country need to be mindful of their local regulatory compliance. So, I think all these AI and new technologies do fall in that. And especially when you put things on cloud, you need to see whether the cloud provider has an audit report, because your local auditors can't go and audit the cloud environment, no? So then even it happens to us. We have so many of the now, even in Sri Lanka, so many companies put their systems on cloud. So then when I do the audit of that, we can say, I want to go and audit AWS, I want to go and audit Azure. So what we look for is Azure and AWS or even other providers, they will get themselves audited by a reputed firm in the world, and they will put out a report on all the controls that are there, like on the areas that I mentioned. And you need to see um, when you're putting everything on cloud, whether your cloud provider has audit report, whether they have their DR capabilities and all. So those also, it's not only for your auditors. The management first should look at that report. When we go to most places, we find, yes, they sent the report. Here it is. So we ask them, have you looked at it? Do you know the risks that are there? Because sometimes they say, yes, this issue was there for the Asian region and it was mitigated, or this issue was there for your systems, your some of SaaS products, but the management didn't even know that there was this kind of issue, because they also need to be concerned. We can't just put everything on cloud and take off our hands there. So all these things need to be thought out. Overall, when you move into new technologies, even in your day-to-day, even on your current systems, even if you build a in-house system, these things need to be thought out. So then embarking on this IT auditing or information security as a career, I would suggest that people first be work in the IT industry, because at least for 2 or 3 years, then you know what happens on the other side of the table. Because I think it has worked well for me. For the first, I don't say you need to work for 6-7 years, but since I was a software engineer and a DB admin, I know what's happening on the other side of the table. So then when we recommend certain things, we can strike a balance. We can see how we can, okay, the control has to be there, but how you can sort of implement it to, because you have to run your business. You have to run your business operation. You can't say, okay, auditors told this, we can do this from tomorrow onwards. That won't work, right? So that balanced solutions we can give if you are in the industry, and your base has to be an IT degree. But other than that, there are these CISA, CISM, C-RISK, CGIT, and even especially ISO, different certifications that you can study, and you can do those exams you can do to build your competencies. So to make, to have a good progress in this career. And I'm sure this is future driven because with all these new technologies coming in, I'm sure all the boards and the CEOs and the companies would know, with this ever increasing automation, whether their systems are secure and monitored. For that, we need the IT security professionals and the IT auditors. And like Prathieshna mentioned, it is a very scarce resource in the country. because we find it very difficult to recruit people to this industry. And you have worldwide, you have great opportunities, and especially like audit firms like us, we are present in all the big four are present in more than 200 countries of the world. So you get opportunities to work anywhere in the world. So if you are good in this career, I think you will always be recruited. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Nivanthi. So please, we've got some questions. Please keep them coming. But I promise I haven't been on Instagram. I've been checking the questions and trying to figure out how to put it to the panelists. But I am going to abuse my privilege as the moderator to first put a follow-up question, two follow-up questions. One would be to Nivanthi, or I don't know whether it's a question or just something topical. You were talking about, you hinted at it, the audit reports for the providers who might be in several geographies. I guess now the reports would have to, considering recent developments, how data centers have also been involved in conflict, they would need to be looking at vulnerabilities even across geographies. The question, I remember quite a while ago actually reading about, you mentioned insurance. And so whether it's insurance for being hacked or for data leaks, all that kind of thing, it's something that is not widely known or explored. Can you, both of you all, since you've seen from the side of auditing and how companies need to prepare and deal with it, you might have seen it in terms of the vulnerabilities and things. Can you share a little about that? Because that's generally not something people might think about, but that helps, because the beauty of insurance is the insurer helps you also figure out where you are vulnerable, right? So can you all briefly talk about?
Yeah, so the insurance, the IT environment related insurance we have seen at the moment in the country is mostly for your servers or your laptops and maybe your data centers, your networking and all. But the data leakages and hacking and all, like Charitha mentioned, is quite less. I think the companies really need to think about those and maybe talk to your insurance providers. Maybe they can come up with new products. Yeah, so it's mostly for the physical or natural damages. It's what we see the insurance, and I know companies where it has been very helpful because they were insured, and then there are places who are not insured and fell into trouble. So the both can happen. But it is, I mean, Charitha, it's a good area that the insurance companies can also think about, and even organizations, the commercial organizations really need to think about in this day and age. Cyber attacks, ransomware, it can happen, right? So
Because
it is,
the
yes,
reputation as well
yes,
as restoring and everything.
yes, yeah,
Anything to add?
yeah, Prathieshna.
I think privacy has been a concern, like in the major organization, we have seen popular sites and everything like that being bought into courts, being bought down to need, like, you know, their reputation and everything been on stake. The problem is insurance have actually not tackled the area where they have to pay the compensation and everything like that. So there are organization, there can be violations. I think so it's a matter of whether like insurance also an area, but also are you going to be proactive about the whole thing? Like, are you going to check the legalities and going to be upfront ready for the battle if somebody like really questions where your data is going and are you violating some of the things? Then before that, if he can go and be proactive, I think we can avoid. But there are certain instances where some things, some loopholes being misused or something like that. Then if your organization is bought to knees in terms of thing, I think insurance providers could help with the compensation and also can think of the damages, and I think maybe compensate on those areas. It's a very challenging topic actually. It's like it's based on how you tackle it.
Yeah.
Like whether you are going to be proactive or going to be reactive. The reactive way is probably where the insurance organization may come into play. But I would stand more closer to the proactive area where we will actually do some audits and do our due diligence that we are not violating any of the things that we do. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So just to stay on the topic, I was wondering whether to bring this in later or now, but just to stay a little close to the topic, we have a question from a staff member and an old friend also, talking about the Local Data Protection Act. So, I mean, where I was at a telco some time ago, and all kinds of concerns from regulatory as well as the legal perspective on data crossing borders, even as part of a multinational organization, but then also working with vendors. So maybe the two of you can also speak about the Data Protection Act, how it addresses handling data within and across borders. And then we have some questions for Manindra and Nuwan as well that will come to. Yeah.
So Data Protection Act is fairly something that is fairly new, I would recent, and then some of the organization actually haven't fully grabbed the gist of like implementing this, and there has like the jurisdiction of it is actually relies on within Sri Lankan operations. But when it comes to the citizens of Sri Lanka, their data is being protected. But if the data is offshore or if the organization is registered elsewhere, things lines become a little bit blurry. That is where then we have different policies. It's that is why I think users need to be very careful on when they are agreeing on to certain terms and conditions, right? These are the stuff that we try to like next. So those are the things I think kind of makes it a bit challenging. But I think currently it's a gray area, like I would say, like major. If you go to the even some organization that has been operating it, if you really challenge them on based on the act, there will definitely be problems. But jurisdiction wise, I think Sri Lankans are protected. But cross border, I think I will let Nivanthi handle that. Yeah.
So I think like cross border, for some of the organizations, they have to comply to GDPR. So then from that, I think cross border data is, I mean, data transfer and all is protected. So like you said, we do have some gray areas in Act, which needs to be, I think, thought at. Yes. Okay.
But it's safer to go with GDPR if you're crossing borders.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we thanks. So now we have it's interesting to see the pattern also. We have several questions. Some of them are like on building your career and security, like career security. A lot of them are headed towards Nuwan. While for Manindra, we have, so maybe we'll start with Manindra about the question that I think you also have seen on the ERP space and the
BA's role,
yeah.
right? So I think it's a decent question, because I think the buzzword these days is AI, and AI is taking over. What would BAs do in the corporate, right? I think, as I said earlier, even for you to get an AI solution done, you need to properly understand the business or the problem domain, right? So that's where the role of a BA is very important. Even though there is AI can't replicate a BA's role in going into a business, having a conversation with a client, understanding their business processes, observing what they do, and getting that onto a proper architecture diagram or a document. So I don't see the BA's role being fully kind of getting redundant because of AI. Because AI, yes, AI is used to develop a solution, but to develop a solution, you need to have a business problem defined, and that definition of a business problem comes from you interacting with a business process owner or a key user or an end user, and understanding that problem, putting that on paper, and then finding solutions for it through AI. So that's why question is very important, but I don't see BA's role being redundant because of AI. Hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Manindra. Right. So lots of questions, similar vein, some of them, an interesting angle also. So Nuwan, one person is Sada is asking, with these AI tools emerging rapidly, do you think uni students and fresh graduates should consider going directly into the startup world, focus on building products and product oriented organizations rather than going into the industry, kind of learning on the job as interns and associates? Another similar question from Kitzer also: how can you, have some job security? How can you make sure your career is proof, at least to the known emergent technologies now?
Yeah, I think great question. So the one from Sada is quite interesting. So um, a year ago, 1.5 years ago, I would say, like for someone who's coming out, it's probably better to go to the enterprise, learn how this stuff works, learn what it means to be in corporate, learn how the tools are being used, processes are being done, get yourself exposed a bit. And now it's a great opportunity to go and either do your own startup or join a startup and build something cool, right? But I kind of personally believe the stakes are changing a bit now, not a bit, a lot now, because right now it might be quite advantageous to directly go to a startup and do things fresh and new, because the way we are approaching problems and the way we are building things is significantly changing. So an enterprise has a lot of legacy, has a lot of stuff that had been done in the past. It can't go away, and you can't really move out of it easily as well. There's a lot of customers depending on you, and you can't shake the ship a lot. But in a startup, you have that opportunity. You're building something new. You're thinking in ways that you didn't think before, right? If you think of a simple retail application, like 5 years ago, if you were thinking of building a retail application, you'd build a search experience, something which you would scroll and find and filter by price or something, and then pick the product you love the most. Today, you'll tell an agent, go and pick me a pair of shoes that's under $100, which is, like this, right? So the way you are thinking about problems is very different now. So joining a startup gives you the opportunity to fall into this new way of thinking and new way of building stuff. So I honestly believe right now it could be quite advantageous to go to a startup, and then join an enterprise later if you're interested, to make changes. So that's what I think about that. On the other one of how do you build like how do you the question is more on like a roadmap of how do you keep yourself up to date and so on. So the key thing is, like I said, again, sticking to those principles is key. And when it comes to principles, not just the principles that we know, but also the new principles that are coming up. Like if you look at AI, how does AI, when we say AI, there's a certain nature of AI we are talking about today, where LLMs are involved, tokens are involved, MCPs are involved, and so on and so forth. So learning these things is also important, very key, right? Learning the fundamentals of how do LLMs work, how do tokens work, right? So keeping yourself up to date on that kind of stuff is also very, very important, right? And like Manindra and some others mentioned, like learning to learn is also key, right? So if you look at this world, if you like we had like MCP stuff till a long time, but for some time, and like I said, a couple of months since, we have something new called skills that are built for agents and AI stuff. So these are all new things that are coming up, right? So keeping yourself up to date is also very, very important in this space. And yeah, I think there was another question on like career security and so on. So I mean, if you look at the reality on the ground is that there are in Sri Lanka, and not just in Sri Lanka but across the globe, there's so much graduates and so much people looking for jobs and not so many opportunities, right? The world economic situation is contributing to this. So many factors are contributing. So the reality on the ground is we have so many good candidates with good grades, good experience. So how do you secure yourself? The only way I see is to stand out, right? So what does standing out mean? Standing out doesn't mean you stick with your good grades and good experience. You have to do something outstanding. You have to go and contribute to something else, maybe an open source project. You go and volunteer for something, build something impactful, build a nice tool, take up a freelancing project, do something, contribute something extra, right? Than just your grades and then just your job that you might be doing perfectly well. there are so many people who are doing it perfectly well. So you need to stand out in order to secure a career nowadays. So that's, I think, something key that I've been telling a lot of people, go and contribute, build something, contribute outside your general line of work. That's, I think, the only way to, keep or have a secure career.
Thanks, Nuwan. And I want to add a few things here as well. But first of all, we have negotiated with the team at IIT to help us go a little beyond the scheduled end time. So if you have more questions, please keep them coming. We still have several to go through. I just want to address one question that came through and related to the question on startups also. I won't name them, but there's a question from a person who's also faced some challenges in going through kind of different organizations. I would say, uh, as a part timer, this means you still have your studies to go on, and that's something that you can still keep finding something else. I'm sure the team at IIT would also be helping you source more opportunities. But I would also say startup life is also not easy. Whether you are a founder or whether you are a team member, there's a usually it's quite a grind, and there is risk. So early on, I mean, if you are a part-timer or if you are somebody who has just graduated, these are conversations you need to have with yourself and with your loved ones, family, and kind of look to mentors, talk to people who have been there before, because there is risk. Often, a safe way to do this is often spend a few years in industry. You are building experience, but you're also saving some money. So there are those factors to consider well. But definitely, any kind of startup experience is kind of time is multiplied. The experience you gain on and it will not be just on writing code, will be something that you will take with you forever. And like I said again, mentors, people who alumni in different years also are people who can help you with this. So I just wanted to address that. And now we'll go to Prathieshna. We have a question on SME. So Prathieshna, I won't read it out too much. I'll just skim over it. It's from Rasika that many rural SMEs may not be tech savvy. And so what practical advice you would give to smaller companies probably that have regarding data privacy and security and even ERP? I mean, we are now seeing companies that are addressing smaller businesses with smaller scale suites of software and things. So that may be also a way for them to think about that.
Absolutely. I think it's a very timely question. I think SMEs and small scale businesses are like very common in Sri Lanka. Like you can create a small company that actually produces small products like websites or anything like that. How would you protect privacy, right? So if you are challenged, you are going to lose all your money because that risk is there, because somebody can actually penetrate or trying to sabotage your organization, because it's a red ocean situation out there, because it's survival of the fittest, and it's very challenging, I would say. So it's better be careful than sorry. So what I would say is, like, even if your budget is small, you can still start small and build up on your security perspective, because this is not an area that you might have not thought of. Like, you might have, when you create a website, what you would think is basically hosting and a front-end dev. Probably that's the maximum that anyone would think of, right? But there are so many other things come into play, like, where is your data being persisted and everything like that. Common rule of thumb is actually to go through them and try to understand the law by yourself, or get a expert advice down the line, and getting that privacy policy nailed down to the very last inch and very correctly is what really matters. And if somebody really challenges, or if something happens to your organization, I think SMEs might not have a lot of resources being back. So if you are legally challenged, I think Nivanthi would agree, then it's a very big of a risk that you are taking. But it's not all, you know, I'm not saying it's very risky, but it's the matter of how cautious you are, right? The moment you learn that there is something like this, it's better to apply immediately and take some steps towards it, maybe immediately or maybe in couple of months' time. And there are so many, I think, students, graduates, and auditors who are starting off, who would be more affordable based on the organization size. So I think it's better to refer to them and start, dealing with these areas early on. Even though if it is not tech savvy, I think you can get some help, and this is probably where some interns or anyone who is following the cybersecurity can actually help on the basics, so you can actually nail it down. Yeah.
Thanks, Prathieshna. You have anything to add? I have a follow-up. Yeah, I have a follow-up for you, but I also something actually I wanted to add earlier. Again, to what Nuwan said about, I always tell students, find something interesting to do. He also mentioned, and when we got here, I was talking with Prathieshna about the interesting freelance and volunteer work he does, right? Some of it will be aligned to his career, some of it need not be. But that is, if you follow your passions, if you do something interesting, first of all, it shows. When you are interviewing someone, I think all of us would have this experience. It really comes through. And the other thing is, it gives you, it makes you not a, they used to talk about T-shaped people, but now they say the world needs W-shaped people or key-shaped people. You have to have a little, depth and experience in many areas to really start adding value. So all of that, and I mean, like I said, I also lecture at a state university, and I tell the students, I understand that all your life you may have been told sit and study, but people graduating from your university, the people that I admire are the people who, even if it was the very first time, learned the sport, joined the club, and did something beyond their studies, because that for them may have been the first opportunity, but the fact that they took it is the most interesting thing about those people. So we are going to come now to Manindra. There's a question for you. I'll summarize it again from Dhanushki about with faster AI delivery. You talked about it creating a competitive advantage. The question is, what is your view on how organizations should balance speed with responsible implementation?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, because I think in the ERP space, that's where I'm specialized in. So yes, AI can be used on certain phases of a project, but not all, right? But we have to understand is, just because you have AI, it doesn't mean that you can implement an ERP or a solution in 2 days, right? So that's what we need to properly understand. It's a good question from Dhanushki, because methodology or method to madness is very important. Uh, Say, yes, you have the fancy, AI platforms and the solutions, but imagine if you don't have the requirement properly identified, then you're trying to build something incorrect or wrong to the wrong solution. So getting the requirement identified, doing a proper solution design, then doing a CRP or a demo to the customer, getting that signed off, then documenting it, then doing a data migration or data validation sort of thing, then going into the construction or building the actual solution, then doing testing, then getting the UAT confirmed, then having the trainings done to the users, then getting the user manuals done, then finally going live. All that is the method to the madness. So just because AI comes into the picture doesn't mean that all of those activities can be done through AI, right? Because requirement gathering needs human involvement. You need to have interactions with the customer, identify the problem, and then only you will be properly able to kind of understand what the problem is. Then yes, you can use a bit of AI to do a bit of solutioning, but entirety of that can't be done through AI. Yes, you can do a bit of documentation through AI, but not fully, right? For example, training. Can AI do the training for the solution? I doubt it. I haven't seen that properly working in ERP businesses so far. So training needs, there could be different language needs because we implement ERPs for different customers across the world. For a Vietnamese customer, the way you have to, speak English is different to how you speak to a European. You have to use a lot of whiteboards to draw certain things, and it's a lot of human interaction that is needed for trainings and customizing your experience to the respective sort of audience. So great question, but I would say yes, definitely the methodology or the structure is very important. Just because AI is there, you can't implement an ERP solution or any other solution for that matter in quick time where the quality is compromised. Because if you just focus on AI and just get some solution done, you're bound to fail. So that's my take on that.
Thanks, Manindra. So we are close to the end. I'm going to put a question to the whole panel to bring us to the end. But quick question also on the SMEs or smaller companies or startups for that matter. I think the three of you may have a view on this. I don't know whether Nuwan will also. What do you say, rather than building everything, there are suites and services like Google Workspace or O365 or other things that those vendors or those companies have created and internalized some of the security and other factors. So how would you say maybe at the first or after they are beyond when they are maybe in revenue, is that a good initial stage of because the hygiene factors are taken care of just by using those. I don't know whether ERPs also there are mid-tier solutions maybe along with those. I've seen some apps for sale on those. Correct? You think that's a good roadmap until they get to a bigger size?
I think starting from existing services is actually you are handing over some of the challenges to them. Like, you have somebody to be accountable in terms of, outages or issues, legal issues, or even in terms of availability and disaster recovery. Some of them, some of the services are battle tested. So for a newcomer into the platform, I think it would be a great idea to go for something that is battle tested rather than building something in-house. By using battle tested services and providers or vendors, you understand how people are using your solution. So, you might have a solutions engineer probably in your organization who is kind of putting in multiple services into a single plate and probably providing it as a bundle for the customer. Initially, the cost will be pretty a little bit higher, but you have to learn the trade, because it's not like what you learn in IIT is going to be directly applied to in the industry, right? So that is industry is kind of different and it has its own challenges. So I think it will be quick to start. I think you can leverage some of the benefits, and also you can offload some of the risks to the that's I think one of the key things. And then once the cost factor or economies of scale is built, I think that's when it's the right time to move to your in-house operations, where you will actually make some money, right? Once you scale up really to a decent level, I think when you build in-house operations, I think you will save a little buck or two. Yeah.
Anything to add? And it need not be a tech or a software company. Rural or a small company starting up to go with suites. Somebody has solved the problem until maybe you get to a size that you've outgrown it.
Yeah, I think research makes a lot of sense because, as you said, it's not the first time that someone is trying to do something, right? That's something that I've learned the hard way also, because we try to reinvent the wheel always, but when you do a bit of research and ask your colleague or go on the internet and use ChatGPT or search about something, then there is going to be something that's done in the same space in different ways.
Yeah.
What you can do is learn something out of it, use it as a base, but then do certain customizations, variations to it to give it your own authentic flavor. I think that would be the advice.
Right. Okay, so we are coming to the final round of questions. Before that, I want to remind everyone that it is organized by the IIT Alumni, IICS as we call it. But we are dating ourselves now. But this is the first of what will be a series of on different topics like this. So please do join the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter, or contact the IIT alumni to alumni organization to get on those newsletters, or to learn about what new events. It's not only this series, it's going to be physical events, it's going to be other opportunities for you to interact with other alumni, but also with kind of other parts of the industry. Remembering again, the one factor of diversity we are missing out here is that we are all IS technology side people, but there's the IIT business programs also. So I'm sure future events panels will cover that as well. Sorry?
I'm from the business center.
That's fine. I was wondering actually when you. Okay, good. So we've covered all of it. We've covered all bases. So and keeping in mind that the diversity of the IIT experience, whether it's people from different parts of the country, right? People, I mean, much better gender balance than in most other faculties, I would say. So all these things is something that we want to reflect even in this. So now, final round of questions, which I am going to bring together. So there's a very specific part of that coming to you, Nivanthi, but in general, to each of you, we are going to bring the question from Dhanushki and generalize it. In terms of the emerging roles or skills, what from some of you talked about this already, but from a perspective of somebody headed to management, what are the roles or skills that will be important in an AI world, even if not AI in a company that is focused on AI? And for young professionals kind of focused on getting to leadership roles, what key skills should they start developing now? And I would also say not only skills, but exposure. Should you raise your hand for a project in your company? Or like we talked about, it can be freelancing. It can be a volunteer opportunity, something with which you will build your skill set. So we can go around the table because Nivanthi has an even more specific question building on that as well. We'll start with Nuwan.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on the nature of the work, right? So getting yourself exposed to AI is something that definitely needs to happen. So I mean, so it all depends on what kind of work you do. So if you are into tech, okay, if you are into the engineering field, right, getting yourself exposed, learning, like I said before, learning the fundamentals of how these things work, and also critically thinking, knowing the fundamentals, right? Learning to ask why, and learning to ask whether this is really adding value. These things are very important. And like you said, getting yourself exposed, being brave about it, and taking the step towards this, it is very critical. And again, depending on the type of nature that you're exposed to, the nature of work that you're exposed to, right, making yourself outstanding, not just sticking to those the usual day-to-day work. If it's any kind of volunteering work like you're doing, like freelancing, building something for someone, or even for yourself, these are all important traits that I think you should get yourselves exposed, right? And of course you have to use AI tools in today's world, right? So sometimes these things are a little bit costly, but I think I see of them as an investment, right? So don't be afraid of it. Make that investment, because it is going to pay off, right? And since there have been a lot of questions on careers and so on, something I've noticed personally is, like, when people are looking for job, if you don't have some AI thing in your CV now, you're not even getting shortlisted, right? So that's the reality of the world we are living in today. So getting yourself exposed, putting yourself up out there, and getting themselves into your CV is quite important going forward. Yeah.
Thanks, Ron.
Right. So I think there is something term called prompt engineers, and this is like a new area that I think being a good prompter, like asking the right questions, like you mentioned, and asking it a way that AI understands and gives you the right answers, is an art and it's a skill. And there are some courses that are outside for the built specifically for that AI tools. So it's quite interesting. I think if you come across any of these kind of things, it will leverage the everybody can use AI. It's about how much of a quality product that you're getting outside, right? So if you ask the right question, I think you're getting some good quality product outside. And I think this being a prompt engineer or a good prompt engineer will help you challenge AI and make the best out of its capabilities. I think that would be a good skill. And most of all, I think you have asked me like being fearless itself is I think that's the first move. Accepting the challenge, and then after that, figuring out how to do it. It's a secondary, right? So I think that's the gist of it.
Thanks, Prathieshna. Manindra?
I think from my end, quickly, since these guys are all techies and said the technical things, I think for me, stakeholder management and stakeholder management combined with people management uh, is very important, because again, you can have all the technologies, all the jargon in the world being there, but if you don't know what you're trying to achieve in the right way, to the according to the right timelines, to the right expectations of the customer. Because when I say stakeholders, it's external and internal both. External is important, yes, I understand, it's customer, shareholders, or whoever. But internal also, you have your project managers, your developers, your AI agents, your support engineers. There are a lot of people around you, so all of them have some stake in whatever that you're doing in any job. So being able to understand that before you get into a task is very important, because otherwise you're going to deliver something that the others are not expecting. So that mastering that skill is very important. And with that, delivery orientation. If you're promising something, make sure that you're promising it valid sort of reasons and assumptions. And if you're promising something, make sure that you stick to it. Unless if you don't do that, then it in this industry you become what do you call it? You become a resource that's not dependable. Then when you become that person who is not dependable, then it's very hard for you to come up and be dependable in the eyes of others. So I think for me those are key things.
Thanks. You reminded me of something without naming the faculties. When I was starting off, the rule at the first company I joined was there were far fewer private faculties at the time. The rule was, if you want an engineer or a hardcore engineer, you hire from a particular state faculty. If you want engineers who can deal with people and talk to people, hire from IICS. That was the rule. So that's going to be more and more the case, because you have to be able to, as you said, be trustworthy and accountable, and work with other people. That's always going to be the key.
I think I can agree with Charitha also and Manindra. So soft skills and people management, that's important. I think in technical terms, we know what to do and how it's to be done. But managing people, talking to stakeholders, and getting their buy-in, and it's not easy, and especially internal teams. So because it's always a teamwork. We can't, although how techy good we are, or how we can, whether we win projects, whether we can deliver it, is with a team. So, and especially in this day and age, this team management, team working as a team is really important. So everyone needs to understand their role and deliver it. And then, like you said, all the tech skills, and especially in this security and auditing space, because if you always need to be updated, up to date, because you need to learn all the new technologies. So what I learned 25 years or 20 years back won't work now, and they are non-existent. So we have to update ourselves, because to be an auditor, first you need to understand the technology, application, database, OS, network, whatever the technology, because otherwise you can't advise people if you don't know the basics of it. So especially if you want to come into this career, you can't know everything on earth, like, but you can always study and learn. We have a lot of resources now on the internet, and especially when you learn, join audit firms like us globally, internally, we have so many learning resources. If you really want to learn, you have it, at your fingertips nowadays. So it's all about getting updated, learning. Your people skills, your soft skills matter, because even when we interview people, some are really good in their technical, but they can't deliver. They can't, blurt it out the answers. Like, so that's saddening. Their grades are really good. Some even have first class, but when they come to the interviews, they fail. I think all of you all agree with me, and that's really important. So it's, and like you said, you need to do other things, join a club, do a sport, enjoy with your friends. So that matters in life, right? So you need to be a balanced person at the end of the day, because then I think if you're a balanced person, you do well in your career as well, and you won't get stressed as well, because you have something to fall back to. And end of the day, we all need something to fall back to, right? Okay.
Thanks, Nivanthi. So, like I said, IIT students now, I can't even imagine the amount of things that they do. We had only a few activities, and we did not do them that well. I mean, these, you all who are doing all these activities, what is it, dance works or stagecraft, or all these things, amazing. So, definitely, those are the things that not only that you will enjoy, but that will also help you in life, and will help you in kind of the conversations you have with people. So we are now half an hour beyond the time we planned. So thank you very much to the IIT team for letting us run over, because we got such great questions and we had the opportunity. But I am thinking of bringing things to a close, if that is okay. So thank you once again to the panelists for your time here, and for sharing all this, your insights and your experience with us. Once again, this is the first of a planned series organized by the IIT Alumni with the support of IIT itself. There will be a feedback form that we will ask you to please tell us how we did. Tell us what you would like to see done differently. Tell us maybe the topics you want covered. Please do not hesitate to share your feedback. The link has been shared in the Zoom chat. So having repeated, I hope, enough that there will be more like this. This is the first, organized by IIT Alumni. Thank you to the panelists. And with that, I think we can wrap it up. Thanks, everyone.